Hello, and welcome to Cooking with Todd. This is Todd. For today's video, I am making a sausage pasta fagiolo. Fagiolo literally translates to bean or beans in English from Italian, so it is pretty much sausage, pasta, and beans. So, for this, you are going to need about 6 tablespoons of olive oil. I personally prefer this brand. It has one origin for the olives. So when you have an olive oil and it has one single origin, that is very nice. You don't have olives coming from Brazil, Mexico, the US, God only knows where else. So olive that comes from one location and is pressed in that location to make the olive oil, that really makes a good difference. Also, you'll see it has a use by date, but above that it has a harvest date, October through November of 2022. So this is still a very fresh olive oil, and with all things considered, that is the brand I use. I don't keep it in the original bottle. I like to keep it in a squeeze bottle, just like I do with my avocado oil. The only downside is it is light sensitive. I very rarely take this out of my cabinet unless a recipe calls for olive oil. If it calls for anything other than olive oil, I will typically just use avocado oil. I stopped using canola oil or any other seed oil, so I mean, avocado is still technically a seed oil, I guess, but it's not as bad as, say, canola. But then you're going to need 500 grams of Italian sausage. This is the brand that I personally kind of like. It's not really traditional, I guess. This is 1 pound. They got that 453 grams wrong. 1 pound is 453.5, so therefore it should have been rounded to 454. But that's just me griping about that. You're going to need 5 cloves of garlic, sliced. I got these here. I have some fairly large ones like this. And these two kind of make one of these, and this is just there because the paper peel on that kind of ripped, so I decided to use it. Then you're going to need 1 medium onion diced. I got that right there. You're going to need 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red peppers. You're going to need 1 can of cannellini beans. You're going to need 1 can of lima beans. That is what these are. Although they're typically called butter beans, they are lima beans. Then you're going to need 1.5 liters of water. That is going to be 6 cups of water. I am going to be using half a jar of tomato sauce. The original recipe calls for 3 plum tomatoes out of a can that you just crush between your fingers. I'm not going to go out and buy a can just for this one recipe, and the rest of them to sit in my fridge for God only knows how long. Although I probably could use them to add to the rest of this jar when I make spaghetti or something, but this is the brand of tomato sauce that I prefer when it comes down to store-bought sauce. This is kind of pricey in my area. If you go to not one of the major chains such as Walmart or anything, it's like $10.29 for this right here. But if you go to Walmart, I think it's $6.88 or something like that. So it's definitely cheaper at Walmart. That's where I end up buying this. The only other grocery store, which is literally all they have, it's over $10. So wherever you can save a little money, do that. If you prefer Prego, use Prego. I don't really prefer Prego or any other brand. They just don't really taste that good to me. Then you're going to need 250 grams of penne. And then you're going to need the rind of a piece of Parmesan. I do have some Parmesan in my fridge, but it is not down to the rind. I don't feel like chopping the rind off just to add into this. So this is definitely an optional thing. You do not need to add that. And if you notice some of my things here are a little off, it's because I am doing a half a batch. I actually like onion, so I am adding the whole onion, and I am adding the whole thing of sausage here, and the whole can of cannellini beans, because I am not going to have that and put half a can of that in my fridge for future use when I don't even know right now if I'm going to be using it in the near future, so I'm just going to use it in this. To get started, you're going to want to get a heavy pot warmed up on your stove to saute your sausage with your onions. I just realized that I got the wrong pot on my stove. I have my normal frying pan on my stove and not my Dutch oven, which is what I needed. So I'm going to have to wait a little longer for my Dutch oven to warm up since I put the wrong one on my stove. Okay, so I'm back. I got my right pan warmed up now. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple tablespoons of my olive oil. And I'm going to wait just a couple seconds, just until that starts to smoke a little bit, just like it is now. Don't know if you can see that on camera. I'm going to add that in, and my onion. Going to grab my spatula here and just break this up. And I am going to go ahead and add in my crushed red pepper flakes. And I am going for a liberal pinch there. I'm probably adding about a quarter teaspoon for my half batch that I am making tonight. Reading over my recipe. Alright, so this is going to cook here until the sausage is completely done, and then once that happens, you're going to want to continue to cook until the onions become translucent. So I will go ahead and bring you back. Alright, so I am back. My sausage is done. So I'm going to let this go just a little longer. And I'm actually going to add a little more crushed red pepper. Just a little. Because why not? Alright, so I'm going to add in just a little more oil. We are now done with the oil, so I'm going to throw that off to the back, and I'm going to crush in my garlic. And I am going to go ahead and scrape the inside out. And kind of push this down to the very bottom. Kind of like that. And crush it again. There's quite a bit of garlic left in there. So I'm going to just give that a quick stir. That garlic's going to need to cook for about 1 to 2 more minutes. I'll let that go and then I will bring you back. Alright, so this has gone for a couple more minutes. I am happy with this at this point. So I am going to go ahead and open up my pasta sauce here. I'm going to add in 500 milliliters or 2 cups of my water. Since I'm doing a half recipe, that's going to be 3 cups for me. But my recipe has me drain the liquid off of these beans. I am not going to drain the liquid off of these beans. So I'm going to actually add all the juices from these beans too. So I am going to end up only adding about half a cup or 100 milliliters of extra water instead of using 750 milliliters. I think I said that right. I'm kind of tired right now. I didn't really sleep that much last night, so let's see, reading my recipe. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my beans. With the liquids. I forgot to shake this can. Shaking the can gets the beans released from the bottom of the can. They tend to like to stick. Then I'm going to, even though I'm doing a half recipe, I am still going to add in half of this jar. Or somewhere close. That in my case I added right around the amount that I needed. Going to go ahead and give this a stir. And this is going to need to come up to a boil, and when it comes up to a boil, you'll want to boil this for about 3 minutes. I'll just bring you back when that happens. Okay, so this has been going for 3 minutes now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spatula kind of just crush some of these beans just by kind of doing that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my penne. I'm going to lower my heat to just under a medium. Going to give this a stir. And you're going to want to cook this until the penne is al dente, or to your desired tenderness. And once it is done, I will go ahead and bring you back. Okay, so my pasta is done to my desired liking. So I've already cut my heat off. And at this point, you're going to want to taste it for salt and pepper and adjust that to your personal taste. So I think mine needs a little bit of salt. So I'm going to add in about a teaspoon. I think it needs a little bit of black pepper too. So I'm going to go ahead and add in that. I also think it needs just a little more crushed red pepper. So I am going to go ahead and add in that. Actually, I am going to add in some chipotle pepper. Just very gingerly shake that in there. The last thing I want is this. This is like 4 or 5 smaller ones, smaller bottles in one glass jar, so that would be a lot of chipotle. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stir this. And also, if you would prefer this to be a little more soupier, you could go ahead and add in water until it's your desired consistency. Me, I actually kind of like it like this, how thick it is right here. It's just not quite stew thickness, but it is right where I like it. I know it's going to thicken up once it's refrigerated and reheated. It will definitely be thicker, so I can add water when that time comes. But you will just want to serve this in bowls. If you would prefer, you can drizzle some olive oil over the top and serve it with some crunchy toasted Italian bread. That would be really good. And drizzle some olive oil over that and toast it in the oven under the broiler. That would be really good to go with this. You could also grate some Parmesan cheese over the top if you would want to do that. Me, I am just going to eat it how it is. I don't have any Italian bread on hand right now, and I don't feel like spending the next 2.5 hours making my own, so I am not going to do that. I am just going to go ahead and wrap this video up right here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button. If you enjoy the content that I'm putting out, make sure to smash that subscribe button. And as always, thank you for coming along with me on this journey of mine.